Ukrainian regulator or straight from the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant, where we have contacts at the moment and permanently through the night. So, as you have been informed, overnight a projectile hit a building within the plant site, within the site plant. This building, I should repeat, is not part of the reactor. It's none of the reactors. Is a training adjacent construction facility to the reactors. This caused a localized fire, which was extinguished by the local fire brigade at the plant. So it's important to say that all the safety systems of the 6 reactors at the plant were not affected at all, and that there has been no release of radioactive material. No release of radioactive material. Importantly, in this regard, is the radiation monitoring systems. So the systems we have to measure the radiation are fully functional as well. However, as you can imagine, the operator and the regulator have been telling us that the situation is naturally continues to be extremely tense and challenging because of the circumstances. Of the plant reactors units, I must say that of all the units that we have there, there's only one that is operating at around 60% of its capacity. Unit 1 was in outage for maintenance. Units 2 and 3 are in safety controlled shutdown. Unit 4 is the one that is still operating at 60%, and units 5 and 6 were already being held in reserve, and they are operating normally in low power mode. Extinguished by the local fire brigade at the plant. So it's important to say that all the safety systems of the 6 reactors at the plant were not affected at all, and that there has been no release of radioactive material. No release of radioactive material. Importantly, in this regard, is the radiation monitoring systems. So the systems we have to measure the radiation are fully functional as well. However, as you can imagine, the operator and the regulator have been telling us that the situation is naturally continues to be extremely tense and challenging because of the circumstances. Of the plant reactors units, we must say that of all the units that we have there, there's only one that is operating at around 60% of its capacity. Unit 1 was in outage for maintenance. Units 2 and 3 are in safety controlled shutdown. Unit 4 is the one that is still operating at 60%, and units 5 and 6 were already being held in reserve, and they are operating normally in low power mode. I must indicate that 2 people have been injured. These people, according to the information we have, are not operators or technical people, and they are part of the security personnel around the plant. So these are the facts. We continue to be in contact with the operators and following the situation, of course, very, very closely. Let me now address how we are addressing this, what are the next steps that we are planning, what is possible in the circumstances. As you know, because we saw each other a couple of days ago, we had a special session of the Board of Governors here. And at that session of the board, I indicated, apart from the general exhortations and reminders of the importance of the general principles of never attacking a nuclear facility and other important conceptual elements, I reminded member states of a number of very clear points that must never be compromised if one is to ensure safety and security at any nuclear facility, be it a reactor or any other facility. And the first one of this was the physical integrity of the facilities, whether it is a reactor, as I said, a fuel pond, radioactive waste storage, everything. The second point that I mentioned to the board was that all safety and security systems at these places must be maintained and operational. The third point I indicated was that staff needed to be able to fulfill their activities normally. The fourth is that there should be at all times off-site power, electricity, so that the facility is able to continue running normally. I also referred to the supply chain that must be always available in case there is a need for spare parts or things that are perhaps needed for repairs. I also referred as a sixth point to the radiation monitoring systems that are also required so that we have an idea of what's going on from the perspective of the possible presence of radioactivity. And finally, communication. Communication, which is so important, as you have seen throughout this night. Without it, we would have not been able to confirm the things that we are telling you. Well, everybody agrees, not without any exception. No country disagrees that these principles must be maintained. However, the first of this, the physical integrity of the plant, has been compromised with what happened last night. So we, of course, are fortunate that there was no release of radiation and that the
integrity of the reactors in themselves was not compromised, but yes, the plant in a wider sense. But it is obvious that when we all agree on these principles, words must mean something, and we have to act in consequence. So for us, the IAEA, it is time for action. We need to do something about this. As I also referred to you, I believe, Ukraine sent a request for immediate assistance to us. So bearing in mind what's happening and the risks that we may all incur if this continues without an enhancement and without a recommitment to these principles, I have indicated to both the Russian Federation and the Ukraine my availability and disposition to travel to Chernobyl as soon as possible, so that these 7 crucial pillars are never again compromised. The idea behind this initiative of mine as Director General of the IAEA is to agree on a framework and on a compromise that would commit to not compromise these principles that we all subscribe and agree to. We all know that given the very complicated circumstances on the ground, the logistics for such a trip, my presence in this place are not going to be easy and would not be easy. But at the same time, I believe they wouldn't be impossible. If we are to extend assistance, we have to be there. And the first to be there must be the head of the IAEA. I want to make clear one point. This initiative of mine has nothing to do with the political aspects of this crisis. This is not my mandate. I am not the Security Council of the United Nations. I am not the Secretary General of the United Nations. I am not a self-appointed mediator. It has nothing to do with that. I want to be extremely clear about this. What we are talking about here is a framework under the aegis of the IAEA, whereby Ukraine and the forces that are present there in the context of this military operation of the Russian Federation can agree to a commitment to not to compromise these principles that I have mentioned. So, as I said, the facts are this. The request for assistance has been made to us. We are not ignoring it. I am ready to come. I stop here and I take your questions. Thank you very much.
So please identify yourself and your media. Thanks, DG Grossi. Jonathan Tyrone with Bloomberg News. Can you please just clarify who specifically you're in touch
that the Russian people should stand up and take out the president of Russia. His spokesperson saying he also meant a coup. But again, Graham's not backing away from this. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki has responded. We're going to get to that in a second. But you have some pushback to Graham from even members of his own party, right? Democrats pushing back, but even some Republicans, too, are calling this a bad idea, saying his comments are not helpful because the world is watching. Even Marjorie Taylor Greene, the Republican congresswoman, no stranger to controversy herself, says what Graham is saying is dangerous and unhinged. And of course, you know Russia had something to say about it, too. Its press secretary for the Kremlin, Dmitry Peskov, saying, quote, this is his quote, not everyone manages to maintain sobriety, I would even say sanity, and many lose their minds. Joining me now is Leanne Caldwell on Capitol Hill. And Leanne, here's why this matters, right? Because Putin is on defense right now. The world, most of the rest of the world is united against what he's doing in Ukraine. And the Russians, his team basically, has been eager to look for any reason to claim persecution by the Americans, right? So there is a risk that what Lindsey Graham is saying now becomes propaganda played over and over again in Moscow.
Yeah, it could be
today, not too long ago, actually. Watch.
That is not the position of the United States government, and certainly not a statement you'd hear come from the mouth of anybody working in this administration.
So clearly pushback from Democrats from the White House. Pushback, though, on the other side from, for example, Republican senator, fellow senator of Lindsey Graham, Ted Cruz, who called this, and I'm paraphrasing, an extraordinarily bad idea, basically, to imply the assassination of another sitting head of state at this extremely tense and volatile moment.
Yeah, the criticism is coming from the left, the right, the far right, like you mentioned, Marjorie Taylor Greene, although I don't think that her opinion really matters much in these sorts of discussions, serious discussions. But what, Senator Cruz said what needs to happen instead of taking out the leader of another country is that the United States needs to continue very tough sanctions against Russia, needs to arm the Ukrainians, get that $10 billion that the administration asked for, approve it so that they have the humanitarian and defense capabilities that Ukraine needs. Now, that is where the discussion is focused on Capitol Hill. Senator Graham is an outlier. Of course, this is not American policy to assassinate the president of another country. But also today, Senator Graham introduced a bill to a resolution supporting Putin being tried for war crimes. So, Graham has been a hawk. He's been anti-Putin for a very long time. Why he decided to come out with this position, I have no idea. But
Appreciate it. Now to an NBC News exclusive that's super interesting here. And the news is we've learned that members of the group Anonymous, the hackers group, they're basically declaring cyber war on Russia. They claim to have targeted more than 1,500 Russian websites, including the defense. Putin.
This is a message to Vladimir Putin from Anonymous. Members of Anonymous have declared cyber war against your aggressive regime.
U.S. officials are saying that this started right after Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and right now you have some sites in Russia that are not even accessible, while a ton of government and military records are getting basically broadcast online. Tom Costello had an exclusive interview with a cybersecurity official on this, a top official. He is here in studio for the show tonight. Tom, we're so glad to have you because this is fascinating stuff. I mean, it is so interesting and super important.
Yeah. It is important, and specifically, the United States is concerned about the potential that the Russians are going to view this attack by Anonymous as an attack coming from the West, and that the Russians will retaliate against everybody. But here's a quick list of the sites, 1,500 plus sites, according to Anonymous, that they have now attacked already in Russia. They claim that they've already hit the Kremlin-controlled news agencies, including RT, the Ministry of Defense, the Space Agency as well, Russian oil companies like Gazprom, internet companies, and even some TV channels have also been attacked.
They've also targeted some U.S. sites, too. I mean, you speak, I think, to your point, as we talked about at the top of the show with Matt Bradley, this is a volatile and extremely precarious moment. As we talked about, Leanne, the wrong word from a senator could mean a lot, right? The wrong move by an outside cyber hacking group like Anonymous could be really problematic, to say the least. You talked with Jen Easterly exclusively, a top cybersecurity official. Tell me more about what she
is the top cybersecurity official. She runs U.S. cybersecurity. Used to be known, it still is known as CISA, but they've decided too many people don't know that acronym. So now they call it cybersecurity, which is more accurate. Bottom line, she says, you at home, regardless of what kind of company you're in, big, small, and all of us need to be prepared. Here's what she said.
Everybody's at risk. I mean, at the end of the day, we live in a world that is highly digitized, highly connected. The volume, variety, and velocity of data is growing exponentially. This can happen to anyone. There is no one that is immune from potentially getting hacked. And so the simple steps that you can take as an individual, the steps that you can take as a business are incredibly important in protecting, it's in some cases an